Hello everyone, Scott here again. Welcome back to the Guilty Pleasure Cinema. Welcome to Hyperbowl with 300 Rise of an Empire. This is the much wanted but not wanted sequel to 300 in the case that how could you do a sequel when the way it ended? And yet it was successful, so they want a franchise. What they've done with this, and it's based on the unreleased graphic novel It's Coming, Xerxes, which is a prequel, is they've taken a movie that takes place before, during, and after 300. Okay? Kind of like Paranormal Activity 2. Except instead of being mostly all the way beforehand and then a little bit toward the end, this one full on starts the story back at the beginning of the invasion. Like the reason that we have the 300 Spartan invasion. The reason for that happening is the genesis here. We have Themistocles killing the Persian king, which allows Xerxes to become king. We fast forward to the Persians invading and Themistocles wanting to unify Greece. So he goes to Sparta to try to get their help, and turns out there's already been a messenger there, and the Spartans, Leonidas has gone to go to the oracle, like in the first movie. And we have that kind of parallel stuff going on all the way through. So we actually end this movie after 300, of course, and 300 ends, and then we have Rise of an Empire's third act, to give you an idea of how it goes. So it does work well in that regard. Now, the best part about this is it absolutely is a 300 movie. It does things so similar thematically, visually, and in the idea that we've got in Themistocles a hero who, and I'm probably saying his name wrong too, but we've got a hero who literally is feared by the enemy, offered to join, declines, which makes the bad guys even more angry at him, leading to crazy battle. Okay? We've even got like a father and son thing where the one dies and this and that, and all this other stuff. And it's all very similar to 300. So thematically it's very familiar. Visually as well. It's a very stylized movie, the first 300. Here's where it differs though. First 300 is big brawly guys with the red capes fighting in the hot gates, the desert. This one is naval battles, but it's not like ship-to-ship bombardments. It's like crash and then board the ship, or lure them in and board the ship and fighting. With Athenians, who are not as brawly, they are big, but they're not like the ultimate male like Spartans are. These guys are like tactical fighters, and they have blue capes. And it's on the water, so it's same but different. And as far as I'm concerned, this movie is so similar to 300 for its betterment, and at the same time, so different from 300 for its betterment. I really can't complain about that. It works so well as a companion to the original. It feels like a 300 movie, and that's been a big thing lately, like a sequel. Does it feel like a proper sequel? This one, I feel, is fleshed out more than 300, because I always felt 300 was missing an act. Or at least a piece of an act. It felt like it was ramping up and then we got denied. Like, I don't like how the end, there wasn't a final battle. It was just a slaughter. Should have been a little something more in that. This one has more oomph to it. And yet it's not as visceral as the first, if that makes sense. The first one is the absolute best there is at what it was. This one is very good at what it is, but it's not on par with that one. But does things differently and is better at that. Again, you can see what I mean. It's similar but different in all the right ways in both regards. As far as the cast and crew and everything, the director, Noah Murrow, has done like one other movie, and it's not one that would make you think he's the director for 300 too. But he did a good job here. It's produced by Zack Snyder, who did the first 300. It very much is, like, it feels like he did this one again. And yet does have different things. Like, there seems to be more depth to everything. It's not just a sparse desert behind everything. There's mountains and such. So it does grow on what the first one did technologically, which works as a sequel, and also for the setting with Athens and such. The music is different, but in the same feel of the big booming classical type, and yet with the modern synthesizing and guitars. So it's got that too. And the cast. Sullivan Stapleton, I believe is the name. I got Sullivan right. I'm not sure on Stapleton. I've never seen him before. He plays Theostocles. I'm screwing it up now. He plays our hero, and he does a very Gerard Butler type performance in the confident hero, and is great. He is awesome. He runs away with it. He's awesome in this throughout. We've got Xerxes back. We've got the Hunchback back. We've got the cool guy who sounds like the voiceover guy from Deadliest Warrior, because they made him sound like him. David Thewlis, I believe his name is, the guy who ended up with the one eye. He's back. And of course, Leonidas' queen, Gorgo, is back as well. Lena Headey. They're back, and a couple other guys too are back, and they're good. They're really good. They flesh out things before, during, and after the first movie, and it feels natural. The new additions, like the father and son I mentioned, some of the evil generals, they all kind of suck. I didn't like them. They don't really fit. But they work as Athenians compared to Spartans, I guess. That does kind of work. The one new addition that runs away with everything and just blows everyone out of the water, which I just realized is a good pun considering the naval battles, is Eva Green. She is amazing in this. And she's hit or miss, because, I mean, she was having so much fun in Dark Shadows. She was really good in Casino Royale. So, I mean, given the right role, she can be really great. This one is insane. How else to put it? She's absolutely insane in this. It reminded me a lot of Charlize Theron in Snow White and the Huntsman. The kind of insane, crazy eyes, know what they are, like relish the role. It was that kind of thing. She was great in this. The problem is they didn't really make her that attractive, and yet we're playing off the fact like her beauty is only matched by her ferocity. And when they said that, she didn't look all that great. It wasn't like she was bloody or dirty, but she just had like weird stylized like downward eye makeup, and it was all dark, and it was like, you've looked better. You don't look that good here. But it did work really well. Her armor was really cool too, and she was very formidable, like crazy. I don't want to really get into much details because I want to keep these short, but there was one awesome bit in the first movie where there was a love scene between Leonidas and Gorgo before going to battle, and they said even in the filming they wanted to make it like a fight scene. Consensual, of course, but it was still like two warriors at battle, sparring, you know, and they wanted to do that and treat it like that. This one, it absolutely has a sex fight scene. They're not punching or anything, and it's not like, it is a sex scene, but it's so like visceral and like undeniably a fight scene the way it's done, because they're like hand on each other's throat and they're at odds, but they're into it, and it's so crazy how they do it, and it's really well done. It's great. There also is the best utterance of the F word I've heard in years in this movie. It's so great. So, bottom line, if you liked the first movie, you will like this one, absolutely, without question. If you didn't like the first one because of this big macho men doing macho things, you might like this one, because the Athenians are more tactical. They're not brutal soldiers. They're very efficient fighters, but they're more tactical, so it's a bit of a smarter way they do it, and still gets the brutality when they actually start swinging swords, naturally, but it's not as macho jockeying kind of stuff. And they actually make light of that in the movie when they're like, oh, Spartans. Like, it's... They do that. The Athenians know what Sparta's like. It has worked perfectly for that. So absolutely recommend it. Personally, I really enjoyed the first one, but felt it was lacking just a little bit. It wasn't perfect in any stretch, but it was so good at what it did. And this one expands on that, is more fleshed out, and really is the perfect companion piece, and elevates 300 with the missing pieces, I thought. Because it's got the stuff like you were thinking of, it's got it in there. So I really do like the fact that they work together so well, and yet are so different in their own regard. If you're watching them and you're cutting between them, you're going to have the red desert fighting that we're familiar with, and then flip over to the blue water fighting. And it's really cool how it's still so familiar in every regard, and absolutely is a 300 movie, and yet they're so different from each other, and they work in that way. So, absolutely go see it. Easy recommendation, and see you next time.